Hi, my name is International Master Robert Gwaze, and I would like to welcome you all to my channel where we talk about chess. For today's segment, we are going to be looking at a principle called LPDO, which stands for loose pieces drop off. Now, what are loose pieces, you may be asking? Loose pieces are unprotected pieces, or as some would like to call them, hanging pieces. But for us to be able to understand this concept fully, I think it's best that we take a quick look at the types of centers that we have in chess. So on the board there, I've just quickly set up a position which I believe will be able to help us understand the types of centers. Right, so the first type of center we are going to look at is called closed center. How does a closed center look like? A closed center looks like this one. So you see, after white has pushed this pawn to d5, you can all see that this central part of the board is kind of closed. Now, when I say center, I need you to focus only on these four boxes: the e4, e5, d4, and d5. Now, as you can see, in these four boxes, we have three which are occupying these four boxes. And this type of a center is what we call closed. Now, whenever you come across a closed center, the principles dictate that you attack the flanks. So which means you need to focus on launching your attack on the sides of the board. I think it's logical to say that because there is no way you can attack in the middle since the center is closed. So the only way is to attack from the sides. Okay, so that was center number one. Let's quickly look at the second type of a center we have. Now, in the same position, if white chooses to capture the pawn on e5, black captures back. Now, I want you to quickly look at the central squares one more time and tell me how many pawns you see in the central squares. Okay, you are going to see that we only have 2 pawns in the central squares. And this type of a center, we call it fixed center. Now, whenever you come across a fixed center, the principles say that you must focus mainly, actually you must try to bring your pieces where they are supported by the pawn in the center. Now, what do I mean? You must try to bring, maybe for instance, a knight. White is aiming for f5 and d5, whereas black will be aiming for f4 and d4. So these are the squares that both players will be aiming for in this type of a center. All right, so let's move on to center number 3. All right, center number 3. So we are back to the same position, but now we're going to be looking at center number 3. Center number 3 is called open center. Let me quickly give you an example of an open center. So let's say maybe white plays knight, black captures, white captures back, black captures, and white captures. Now, as you can see here, I want us to focus again on the central squares. And you are going to see that we only have 1 pawn in those squares, which makes it an open center. An open center is when you have 1 or no pawns at all in the central squares. Okay. Now, what do you do when you come across an open center? The principles, they say that you must focus, or you must at least try to focus mainly on the big pieces and limit pawn moves. Now, what do I mean? Let's say I'm the one playing the white side here, and let's say black plays, and let's say I have two options here. I'm thinking of playing b3 and maybe bishop b2, which is also a very good move. By the way, I might have to go for knight g3 first, simply because it's an open center and it's a big piece. I hope you get the idea. Now let us move on to our last type of center. Alright, so funny enough, our starting position is actually our final center. This position actually has what we call a fluid center. Some like to call it a liquid center. Now, why do they call it a liquid center or a fluid center? It's simply because this type of a center can change into any of the three other centers. For instance, if white was to move his pawn forward, the center has turned into a closed center. Okay? The center has turned into, okay. And if white was to capture and black captures back, this becomes a fixed center. Okay. And let's say white plays here, black captures, and this becomes an open center. So what is the fluid center or what is the liquid center? It is a center which can change into any of the three centers. Now, how do you deal with the fluid center? You turn it into the one which suits you best. So if you're in a position where you feel an open center will do you good, change it into an open center. If you feel in a position where a closed center will do you better, you just simply turn it into a closed center. So now that we have an idea about what types of centers we have in the chess, I think now we can move back to our main theme of the day, which is the LPDO. Okay, so now that we have a little bit of understanding of the centers that we have in chess, let us quickly look at the LPDO. Right, so let me just give you an example here. White played e4, five. Okay, black played an opening called the Alekhine. I think this is all standard. Okay, nothing much to talk about here. White captured the queen. Now, in this position, black played knight b6. Alright, I think the reason why black played knight b6, black did not want white to play c4 and maybe d5 or moves like that. So instead, black started by playing knight b6, preventing white from pushing c4 because now the queen is directly attacking d4. Okay. And in this position, white castled. White went for a sacrifice, but it's actually a trap, and black fell for the trap. Now, after queen takes d4, believe it or not, but I believe here black is losing. After rook d1, of which that's what played. All right, so after rook d1, the queen is under attack. Now, how many places can this queen move to? Now, I mean decent places. We are going to look at 1, 2, 3, and 4. These are the 4 decent places that I can see. If you can see otherwise, please give me a shout out. I can only see 4 good places here. All right. So after rook d1, all these options are losing, using that principle of LPDO, which means loose pieces drop off. Now let's quickly take a look at queen b4. What if black had played queen to b4? I want us now to quickly look at that principle of LPDO. Let us count the loose pieces that black has. Alright, so for instance, this rook here is not a loose piece because it's protected by the knight. You get the idea? This pawn cannot be a loose piece because it's protected by the rook. Okay, like that. Okay, so how many loose pieces does black have? I see 1, the rook, 2, 3, 4. The king does not count. So this principle tells us that there's somehow there is a way of winning these pieces, or of capturing these pieces, if you apply that principle very well. So we are going to do just that today. Now in this position, white to play and win, what would you play for white? Alright, so what I want you to look at here is the first thing that I taught you, which is the centers and the principle of LPDO combined. So what would you play here? I would first look at the center. What type of a center do I have, or do we have? I can see that there is no pawn here in the middle, which means this type of a center is an open center, which tells us that we need to focus on the big pieces. Okay, so whatever we are going to move here, whatever we're going to play, let's just make sure that it is a big piece. Now in this position, I think the best move would be for white to play queen f3. Now why is white playing queen f3? He's attacking a loose piece, and at the same time, checkmate. Attacking loose piece. This loose piece is gonna drop off now, and at the same time is threatening a checkmate. Now I don't see any decent way of black defending this checkmate. Right, queen cannot move here. That's not a good move because of the knight. Okay, and I don't see how else black can defend the pawn on f7. Okay, the only defense which is there is to play maybe f6 or f5. Okay, f6 or f5, of which both of them are losing. For instance, black plays f6, white goes queen h5, check, g6 is forced, knight takes g6. Well, if he doesn't capture the knight, he's going to lose the rook, maybe even a checkmate. Pawn captures the knight, and most of my students, when I ask them what they would play in this position, they would go for the rook, which is also winning, but I think the best move is simply just to capture the pawn, and it becomes a checkmate. Okay, so you got it? So let's go back to our position. Queen b4 loses to queen f3. Alright, but how are we applying this principle of LPDO? Simply by playing queen f3, you are attacking a loose piece which is on b7. Are you getting the idea? Okay, let's do this one more time. We are saying if black plays queen b4, white is simply playing queen f3, attacking the loose piece. Okay, but it so happens that in this position he is also threatening a checkmate. Okay, I hope you're getting it. Let's move back to the initial position and let's look at black's second option. What if black plays queen a4? Now we are not going to waste much time on this queen a4, all right, because it's almost the same as the previous one that we looked at. White again will play queen f3, attacks the loose piece and threatens checkmate, and this is winning for white. Alright, so we've already looked at two options for black. Let's look at option number 3. my favorite in this position. What if black plays queen h4? Now I'm just going to give you maybe let's say 20 seconds to try and figure this out, and then we can maybe proceed from there. All right, so just take a quick look at this and then we can proceed. Okay, I trust you got the answer already. White to play and win, but he must use the principle of LPDO. So the first thing that you need to do is to count the number of loose pieces on black side. So again, that's loose piece number 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the 4 pieces which are not protected. All right, which means somehow your next move you must try and attack one of these 4 pieces. All right, and also don't forget to look at the center. What kind of a center do you have here? We have an open center, which means you must attack these 4 pieces using a big piece, because that's what the center tells us to do. All right, so a move like g3 is an okay move, but it doesn't align with our principle of the centers. Why? Because this center tells us to move the big pieces and not pawns. Okay, so what does white play? White plays bishop to g5, attacking a loose piece. Now in this position, black does not have many options. Black has got 3 options. Option number 1, option number 2, and capture. These are the 3 decent options that black has, of which all of them are losing. Okay, so if he was to play queen b4, then we are back to our original position, the first ideas, where we simply play queen f3, threaten the pawn on f7, which is a loose piece, and a checkmate. All right, okay, we are here. So queen b4 or queen a4 both lose to queen f3. Okay, queen b4, queen a4 both lose to queen f3. So what must black play in this position? Black captures, and after capturing, still the center is open, so white has to play a big piece. White plays rook check, and black is forced to capture, and white plays knight check, attacking rook, king, and the queen. In this case, it's actually attacking 2 of the loose pieces. Guys, are you getting the idea of this, of the LPDO? I hope you are. All right, let's look at the last variation in this position. All right, so in this position, the last option for black would be to play queen to c5. Now again, after queen c5, black is losing using the same principle of LPDO. Now how? I'm going to give you a few minutes to look at this position, then I'll be back. Okay, it's not so difficult. I'm sure you got it by now. All right, so in this position, let us count again the number of loose pieces that black has. So it's 1, 2, and 3, which means you must attack, you must try to attack one of these 3 loose pieces. All right, this one is kind of tricky though, because The way you're going to have to attack is by another tactical theme called the X-ray attack. Okay, I think I'll make another video sometime explaining this X-ray attack, but let me just quickly show you how it looks like. So in this position, white played queen h5. Now the queen seems to be attacking the pawn only here. The queen and the knight are both attacking. They are both attacking the pawn on f7. They're actually threatening a checkmate. All right. But cunningly, white also is actually, this queen is also threatening the queen. You are asking how? I'll show you now. So in this position, how does black defend white from capturing the pawn on f7? I think there's only one way of defending that pawn, which is to play pawn to g6, because black cannot play here because of the rook will capture. Black could not play here because of the knight captures. All right. So the only defense here that black has is to push pawn to g6, and that's what he did. And after this, white played rook check, and black is forced to capture, and he did, and white happily captured the pawn on f7 with a check, attacking a loose piece and a loose piece, and black resigned. Guys, I hope you're learning something here. So this is all I had for you today. We're gonna look at other things in my next video. Thank you so much. Bye.